Okay, we're continuing with the book here, The Holy Grail of Wisdom Codes by P. Rogers, alphabetical order. First is John Monsell, then we're going to do Stefan Molyneux. Monsell was an Irish writer of hymns. So, fight the good fight with all thy might. Christ is thy strength and Christ is thy right. Lay hold on life and it shall be thy joy and crown eternally. And, of course, that comes from 1 Timothy, St. Paul. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And his next one's about the same sort of thing. Run the straight race through God's good grace. Lift up thine eyes and seek his face. Life with its way before us lies. Christ is the path. Christ is the prize. Yeah, and Christ inspires a lot of people to great achievements. Okay, the next one is Stephen Molyneux. Now, Molyneux is a smart guy, but he's also a bit of a BS artist. And he's also, tries to claim that atheism is smart. Atheism is not smart. If you know a lot, you believe in God, because it's just too amazing, all these things in biology, besides all the religious stuff. Okay, I'm a Christian and I believe in all the, the Jesus stuff and all that. But I'm just going to tell you, from a scientific point of view, you can't explain origin of life, origin of complexity, the immune system, the mitochondria, the clotting system, etc., the irreducible complexity. It's just overwhelming. Okay, Molyneux, he says, good philosophy is always hate speech to evildoers. We've got this weird dysgenic situation where we're basically paying idiots to breed and we're taxing intelligent people away from each other as far as anything remotely resembling fertility is concerned. Okay, let's see here. He then says, deep pockets with empty hearts rule the world. And there's truth in that. The world is much more controlled from top down than the average person realizes. I know, like, whenever somebody tells me, oh, this was on the news or this is whatever, as if it just happened by grassroots, immediately in my mind, I lose respect for them. I think, this person doesn't know. Stuff happens because big money above says this is what we want to happen. Not that much happens from the ground up. Some does, not that much. When it happens from the ground up, it's a bunch of little things. It's not one big thing. Okay, he says, if you can convince people that freedom is injustice, they will believe that slavery is freedom. Yep, that's my experience too. Knowledge is responsibility, which is one reason why people resist knowledge. Real freedom is you can do what you want, but as long as you don't bother other people. And that means you can say whatever you want. Okay, the greater the gap between self-perception and reality, the more aggression is unleashed on those who point out the discrepancy. Yeah. It's like a fat woman gets mad if you call her fat. A skinny woman knows it's BS. Baseless victimhood is usually the last stage before outright aggression. Yeah, that's another thing that happens is the public schools will train one group of people to hate the other group of people because they want people not getting along. When people don't get along, they're much easier to control. All right, then if they were unified to say, hey, we want a better deal. Conformity is the present to the present, invisibility to the future. Yeah, that's sort of like my philosophy, is that if you conform, you have an advantage in the short run, but in the long run, you make yourself irrelevant. Like if you want to, teach nutrition and health. Deep connection is the antidote to madness. Love is an involuntary reaction to virtue. Anger is the immune system of the soul. In the same way that Marxism robs workers of ambition, feminism robs men and women of love. Yeah, women have been sold a bill of goods with feminism. Oh, your career matters. Your career doesn't really matter, not that much compared to your family. It matters, but not like compared to your family. Your family is way more important. Your family will bring you way more happiness. My mom was like the happiest person I ever met in my life. She was so happy. She was a housewife. She had worked a little bit until she had her first baby, but she loved being free to play tennis, be on the board of directors at an orphanage, be a tour guide at the architecture place, Frank Lloyd Wright Institute, all that stuff. Whereas all these modern women, I know them in the other generations, they're unhappy. They have to work. They're tired, exhausted from work, and they come home. No one else cares about the house except for them. Then they got to clean the house. They're exhausted all the time. Their employer doesn't give a rat's tail about them. They'd fire them in 2 seconds. So, in the home, mama's the queen of the house. I mean, that's as high as it gets. But my mom would have these big matriarchal Mother's Day. There'd be like 100 people come to our house versus nowadays, you see all the moms are exhausted, they're tired, they're basically alone, they go visit their parents. Okay. They don't have anything like what my mother had. Okay, we've made for survival and reproduction more than for truth. We're made for survival and reproduction more than for truth, and that's probably why it's difficult for the truth to succeed unless backed by money and power. Yeah, that's what I've seen. Some BS message comes from above with money and power. No matter how untrue and ridiculous it is, it gets promoted everywhere. And then the truth is being stomped on all over the place, and it barely stays alive. Ayn Rand is the smoky-voiced goddess of reason. The law is an opinion with a you-know-what. There's nothing that is going to make people hate you more and love you more than telling the truth. The whole point of propaganda is to make the obvious seem obscure or offensive. If you can't share what's important with the people around you, then you have no relationship. It's all just proximity and turkey and sports and weather and bullshit. Yeah, I don't like to ever make small talk. I'd rather just walk away than talk about nonsense. Okay, it's not just the abuse of power that's the problem. It's the power to abuse. Yeah, people should not have complete power because they probably will abuse it. Social anxiety results from being around people who are resolutely opposed to who you are. The continual manufacture of enemies is essential to the growth of a fascist ruler. That's one thing you'll see is that they start out like in the French Rev, okay, 1789 to 1794 or so. They started out with the real opponents, and then almost the royalists all fled, and then they started just going after anybody who was, only moderate in their support. Okay, and then anybody who was lukewarm in their support. Okay. Okay, his last line from Stefan Molyneux. He says, anyone who tries to change society without examining the family is trying to push a shadow without moving its statue. And I do think that's part of what all this cultural stuff is. They're trying to get rid of the family, the traditional family, a husband and a wife and their children. Okay, that's the traditional family, and that's what it's been for, since recorded history. And they're trying to get rid of that. They want, the people to basically be like, manufacture a baby and then don't even raise it, Anyways, we're not going to get into all that right now. So, he's a bright guy, but he, like I said, he ends up spiraling, spinning his wheels, and he doesn't go anywhere because of his atheism. He can't do anything. That's been my impression of him. Okay, that's it from Molyneux.